Hello, this is Wendy Alley, the Vice President of MLS Operations for the Pensacola Association of Realtors. Today I'm going to be going over your listing options regarding choices that you have for listing a property in Paragon. Most likely you're here because you have watched a recent video from our chairman, our MLS committee chairman, Gray Burge, about the changing of a rule that we have regarding putting listings in to Paragon and how long you have to do that. So the change that is starting April 1st is that you will have 2 business days after you get all the necessary signatures on your listing agreement to place that listing into the MLS. That was at 5 business days, and if you watch the video, you'll know all the reasons that we changed it. If you haven't watched the video, please go look for that. It's going to be on the front page of the MLS for quite some time. With today's market, it was a necessary change. So you can go watch that from Mr. Burge and get the reasons why we made that change. So starting April 1st, you will have 2 business days. Weekends and holidays do not count. We will also be waiving the fine for the month of April. So we realize this is somewhat short notice to tell you about the rule change. It had to happen fairly quickly because of the market. So we will be waiving that for 30 days or the month of April. So that fine will not go into place until May 1st of 2021. So you're going to have a little bit of time to get used to this new rule that gives you 2 business days to put that listing in. So let's talk about what happens when your seller's not ready to place the listing into the MLS with 2 business days. There's so many things that can happen. We know that your seller could be decluttering. They could be making some repairs. You maybe need to get some professional photos done of the listing before you want it to go live in the MLS. This happens all the time, and you have a couple of options when this happens. Your first option is to place the listing into the MLS into a coming soon status. So as you should already know, coming soon has been into our system for a couple of years already. It allows you to place it in. It does not get syndicated out anywhere. So what that listing does is it stays within Paragon's system only. Only other agents that have access to Paragon can view that listing. So you can get it ready. You can not have a photo on it. It does not require a photo to put it into a coming soon status. There is no time frame for a coming soon status. In other words, as long as that seller directed, your seller is telling you to keep it in a coming soon status, it can sit there as long as it needs to sit. It can have many reasons as to why it's sitting there. We do have a reason area, which I'll show you here in just a moment. But you're going to be able to have it in there as long as you are in need to have it in there. The other option that you have, if your seller is not willing or doesn't want it in the MLS as a coming soon, is you can keep the property out of the MLS until you're ready to put it in as active. The only thing that we need in that instance is for you to have a signed document from your seller stating that they would like to place that listing or keep that listing out of the MLS for a certain time or until something happens. It could state that until the repairs are done, or it could state, until June 1st, 2021. It can either have a date or a reason. We do need it in writing, and we need that signed by your seller. You're going to send it to an email address that we have, which is documents@pensacolarealtors.org. So there are your 2 options, to place it in coming soon within 2 business days, or to keep it out of the MLS and send us a document from your seller stating that they want it out of the MLS. So let's take a look at our input sheet here. There is some confusion, we realize, around list date and market date, so I want to just define both of those for you, show you where you can find the definitions anytime that you might forget what those are or what those mean. So the first thing let's look at is list date. you'll notice this little question mark to the right of the list date field. That is going to give you the definition each time you click that question mark. So the list date is actually the date on your listing agreement that the listing term begins. You should have at the top of your listing agreement a statement that says this listing agreement starts on this date and ends on this date. So what we're looking for here is the date that's at the top of your listing agreement when that agreement starts. This is not necessarily the date of your party's signatures. We realize that sometimes it takes you several days, sometimes weeks to get those signatures. So this is the date again at the top of your listing agreement that you're going to place in there. I also have a question mark next to market date. So anytime you forget what that market date means, you can click on that question mark. It will come up and let you know that the market date is the date that the seller or lessor has requested in writing that the listing be placed active in the multiple listing service. So this is an agreed date that you and the seller have agreed on that you want the listing to go active. Many times your list date is going to be different than your market date. That's absolutely okay. Sometimes they might be the same, probably not very often, but it can happen. So there are several different scenarios, that could happen for this. But please understand that market date is the date that you've agreed with your seller that is going to go live in the MLS. In most cases, you should be, when you're making your listing active, the market date should be the date that you're making that active. Okay. This is also the date that we take days on market from. So this will start your days on market. And so that's why I say in most cases, when you're putting a listing active, it should be that same date that you're putting it in. Days on market will pull from that. We also pull the rule from that. So we do not look at list date as far as the 2-day rule. We're going to be taking a look at the market date for that 2-day rule. So that is the field that we take that from. So let's just do a scenario here where we have listed a property, upcoming property. Let's say that the list date on the top of our listing agreement says this listing date starts on June 1st, 2021. So we're going to put that in our list date field. However, our sellers aren't quite ready, so we don't want this to go active until 6/15 of 2021. So we're going to just pretend that we're putting this listing in on the 15th. So our list date again is going to be June 1st. Our market date will be 6/15, which is the day that we're entering that, which is the agreed upon date that we have in writing from our seller that they were ready for that listing to go active. And then our expiration date is going to be a year from our list date. So it's going to be 6/1/2022. So that's how that is going to look if we're putting just a regular, we're ready to make this go active. This is how those list date, market date, and expiration dates should look in that scenario. Pretty straightforward. Again, if you forget what that list date and market date, the differences in there, there is always those question marks to the right-hand side that will remind you what those mean. So let's take a look at a coming soon scenario. So we've got our status as coming soon. You'll notice that we have a new field in there that asks you for a coming soon reason. That's going to give you several options. If none of those options relate to your listing, then there is an other option or see agent remarks. So you can put whatever reason that you need to as far as a coming soon listing. So in this case, we also have a new field that says projected market date. And you'll notice again that we have a question mark to the right of that projected market date. The definition of that is pretty simple. We just want you to place the date that you believe the listing will be marked active in the system. So you're kind of looking into the future saying, when do I think this is going to go active? And you're putting that date in there. That date can be modified the entire time that this listing is in a coming soon status. So when you're putting that in, keep in mind that things happen, things can change. So if the seller is doing repairs and it's taking longer than expected, or they're not quite ready when the date that you first agreed upon, you can come in there and push that date out at any time. You can come and maintain that. So keep in mind, it is important to remember that if you let that date hit in the system, Paragon will automatically flip that from a coming soon to an active status. So don't let that catch you off guard. Some people will forget, and what happens is it does it overnight, because when it hits midnight, Paragon knows that that date is now in play. So when it hits midnight, it will take that listing from coming soon to active automatically for you. There is no way to get it back to a coming soon status if that happens. What you will do at that point, if it still is not ready to be shown, then you will place it in a temporarily off market status. Just know that you can't go back to coming soon. So let's take a look at our scenario now with our list date, market date, projected market date, and expiration date. So we're going to take our same scenario where we've got our listing agreement starts on June 1st. So we're going to put that in our list date, our 6/1 of 2021. Our market date, now coming soon is a little different with market date, and this is confusing. I apologize that this is confusing. Market date cannot be in the future. So at this point, we're not able to put our 6/15 date in. We've got to put today's date in there. But please know that when this listing is marked active, either by you or by the system automatically placing it active, we have a rule on the back end that says once this goes active, the system will change the market date to the date that it goes active. Okay, so in a coming soon scenario, just keep in mind that the market date does have to be the date that you're entering it in as a coming soon, but the system will automatically take care of that on the back end when it goes active. Okay, so you don't have to worry about that market date going in incorrectly. It will start days on market the day that it goes active without you having to go in and change that. In fact, it won't allow you to change that in maintenance. It will be grayed out to where you cannot. But please just remember that we are taking care of you on the back end with autofilling that when that happens, okay? So that's going to be the date that you're putting it in as coming soon. Projected market date is still going to be that 6/15. This is when we believe that the listing will be ready to be marked active. And again, just to reiterate, you can change that at any time. So if circumstances change in your listing, that can be placed active, or that can be pushed out, to any date that you need that to be. As long as you don't let that date hit in the system, it will stay as a coming soon. And again, our expiration date is still at a year out at 6/1/2022. So that is how you would take care of a coming soon listing when you're putting it in. Obviously, if you have any questions at any time, please feel free to reach out to our MLS department. Our number is 850-434-5507. We're happy to take your calls at any time. Thank you.